Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hey, this is Jackie Cation. Welcome to the Dork Forest. You know the websites, JackieCation.com, DorkForest.com. Shows on iTunes, shows on Stitcher. Show is on All Things Comedy, all the things. I'm doing stand-up in L.A. this week, and then I'm going on a cruise for the Jonathan Colton cruise to do a live Dork Forest and hang out with a bunch of awesome nerds, dorks, geeks, whatever you want to call them. And then I'm in Spokane, Washington, and then I'm in Peoria, Illinois. So live it up, folks, if you want to come see me do stand-up. My new album comes out March 3rd. And it'll be available on iTunes and Amazon, and then hard copies at the end of the month. So it's available for pre-order right now on iTunes. I don't know if it's available for pre-order on Amazon, but there you go. And it is called I Am Not the Hero of This Story. So if you like my stand-up comedy, feel free to pre-order that. The old albums are all available as well, hard copy and digital, in the normal places. And let's do the credits. Mike Rigberg composed and sang that song you just heard, sang it with his wife Sarah, just had breakfast with them. He will sing his words to the Mexican Hat Dance at the end of the program. Patrick Brady's going to fix this audio, and Vilmos fixes JackieCation.com. JackieCation.com and DorkForest.com both have a donation button. If you like the show, feel free to donate. Knock yourselves out. Or just tell people about it, or you can order merch. Another way to support the show is to use the Amazon banner. The Amazon banner is under Support the Show at JackieCation.com. It's just a link at thedorkforest.com. And all it does is bring it to Amazon. You order for normal from Amazon, and the Dork Forest gets a little bit of a kickback. Thank you very much for that. You can get T-shirts and CDs and my DVD hard copies at dorkforest.com, and you can find my schedule, my extended schedule, at JackieCation.com. It's all actually on JackieCation.com. Whatever. I don't know what I'm forgetting, but God knows. Let's get into the show, because it's a good one. Hey, it's Jackie Cation. I'm sitting in my living room with friend of the show and friend of, I think podcasting everywhere, Chris Mancini. Welcome back.
It is great to be here. I love coming here, and I always think, when I drive up here, I passed it. Like, I've already missed the turn. And I'm like, no, it's really this far north.
We are north in the valley.
Yes.
We are north in the valley, which makes it, what is the word I'm looking for? Oh, right, affordable.
Yeah.
Nice. Good for me.
Yeah.
And so
kitchen in progress. It looks beautiful.
Right. You got some parsley growing out of the backyard here in February. And
I know, it's like being in Kansas in the 50s.
Right.
This is fantastic.
Oh, I am very much a Kansas housewife in the 50s for some reason. I don't know why. The depression wife comes out on me when we moved into this ticky-tacky awesome house. And so Chris Mancini, for the American public and the world public, should know, comedy film nerds.
Yes.
Founder and continued ongoing LA Podcast Festival creator.
Yes.
Here in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Podcast Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And
Writer-director.
Right. Yeah. You enjoy a scary movie. Those are previous episodes. We've talked some horror.
Yes, indeed.
And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because it finally happened.
It's finally done, yes.
It's the podcast documentary, Earbuds.
Yes.
An implication about headphones, you guys.
Yes.
I get that. So I'm not above it.
It took forever.
It did kind of take forever, but it is beautiful. So Earbuds, the podcasting documentary, and you said you're working on a bigger distribution than just Comedy Film Nerds?
Yes. Right now it is at a Comedy Film Nerds and for digital and DVD, and we'll sign the DVDs for you too.
Sure.
But we're working on a distribution deal where it should get everywhere. But, a distribution deal takes some time because they don't want to pay you any money.
Right. You have to keep talking to them and say, why are there no dollar bills, dollar signs in this contract?
Can we get to the word reasonable? Is that's the goal? It's not like, this is great, we made it. No, we have to get to reasonable. That's where we're headed.
The Horcrux. You know my Horcrux story because this will make an excellent Horcrux. The DVD special I shot myself at Acme 3 years ago and put out as an album. Rangers know that. but it is available for download, $10 download at comedyfilmnerds.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to get a distribution deal with Netflix, and the contract literally said that they would own it for 10 years, and I would get no money. And then afterwards,
why wouldn't you do that?
Why wouldn't I do that? Why? And they were like, and it wasn't even with Netflix. It was going to be with Hulu.
Right.
And it was 3 years ago. So, and I was supposed to do it for the exposure.
Of course.
Of course. And I was actually, there was part of me that was willing to do it.
You know why companies don't exist? For the exposure. Companies don't do things for the exposure.
Yeah.
They expect you to.
Right. Exactly. And, there is a part of me that's like, yes, I would like the exposure. So you can take me for a buggy ride, but please take me for a 3-year buggy ride and give me $10,000 because it costs 20.
Right.
And we'll split it. How about that?
Yeah. These companies are cash poor, Jackie.
It is hard. It's hard to be a corporation these days.
Yeah,
I know that
there are
people,
especially on the internet with a lot of
streaming
content.
costs.
Yes.
Yeah, streaming costs are so enormous. It's I always wonder. I don't know why I want to talk about this for another. Anyway, but that because the rest
we could dork out about internet corporate structure and financing
for 1,000 generations. And my favorite thing is when I play a gig in Canada and I come back to the United States and my bank won't cash the check for 6 weeks. I was like, I know
6 weeks.
Yeah, and it costs $15 US, and I'm like, first of all, you familiar with the exchange rate? And second of all, I have the internet. I know what the exchange rate is. Why don't you just give me the money and it'll all work out?
It takes a long time for ones and zeros to travel.
I guess just over the ether.
Yeah.
And so, Chris Mancini, I always think of you as a film guy because you're a film writer and director, and I just you're like, no, I want to talk about the newly found love of board games.
I think because, too, it's like, well, I talk about movies every week.
Oh, right.
And,
on Comedy Film Nerds.
Yeah, so I was like, well, what else do I do? You know?
Right.
And one of the things is, last time I was here, I talked about the graphic novel that I was working on. And I sent you the first chapter.
Yep.
Because that's part of, like, I just love writing. But one of the things I've discovered is that I always grew up playing board games. It was, Monopoly, Mastermind, all the classics, Risk. And then my
How
go-to.
many siblings do you have? Do you have any siblings?
Only one. Yeah, and he was much younger, so I would always just play with friends.
Oh, interesting. Look at you with your social skills.
Yes. It was either Dungeons & Dragons, or we get together and play Risk, or it was
Axis and
Allies was the big one. Axis and Allies was
That's
the
the
huge
first
one.
game I ever played with you. It was a 6-hour tension headache.
And it really was, because it was a, quote, anniversary edition.
Yeah.
So it had all these extra rules, pieces, and play mechanics. So even since we had played the game before, this is still taking forever because I don't know what's going on.
Right, and setup always takes an hour or more if it's fiddly.
And that one is it takes an extremely long time to set up.
Right. We only made it to 1943.
No, that was
so
if we were lucky.
Get through the war.
Yeah, and it was one of those things too. I always wanted to play like Japan because I always thought, well, no, if I do it differently, Japan could really win.
Right.
And it's interesting. The game is so well balanced and so set up so well that sure enough, like I did the Pearl Harbor attack and I would expand into Russia and all the surrounding territories, but the U.S. would eventually outproduce you in units and then win.
Yep.
It depends also how Germany was doing on the other side of the board.
Right.
And but Japan, even though I loved playing it, I would always be one of the first ones out.
Right. And did you stick to Japan? You're like, I'm doing this.
Oh yeah, I was very stubborn. I was like, I can make it work. Somehow I can make it work. Yeah.
This can work.
And every once in a while I did. I was successful, but 70-80% I was not. I remember once too, like one of the best strategy players, it was Dave. He's actually was the sound mixer for earbuds.
Oh, nice.
It's a lifelong friend. And he played Germany and I played Japan, and but he was doing really well as Germany, and I was Japan, and then I got knocked out, and I had to go home. It was getting late.
Right.
I heard the next day, it took us forever to kill Dave. It took literally the rest of the world to finally get rid of Germany because he had expanded and done so well on his own.
So, and what people should know about Axis and Allies is that it's not an ideological game.
No,
It's
it is
more
a game
of a
of
risk game.
strategic placement of units.
It's Stratego, but
Yes.
super fancy.
Right.
It's the fanciest of all Stratego games, or Battleship.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And what I loved about it too, it was like the first game I played back then that you had all these different units and they all did something different. Like, well, do you buy tanks? Do you buy men? Do you buy bombers? Do you buy fighters? Do you buy aircraft characters?
Is it a sea battle?
And it depends too. Well, what's the other person buying?
Yeah.
Because, if
they're stuck on the sea, you better buy some planes.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I spend a lot of money on a battleship, it gets like a support attack onto the mainland when they invade. So So you get all these like different kind of like in video games they call it the rock paper scissors kind of thing where one thing has a strength against something but it's weak against something else.
Right.
So it was so strategic on what you would buy, what you would use, and what the other person was doing too. And,
right. So it's a balancing.
Right. And it was like whereas Risk everyone has the same units.
Yeah.
So it was, I just love playing that game. And then, I stopped playing games for a while, but then.
Yeah, you got sucked into your career. You know, it's that
video games
and video games took over for a long time. And so in the last couple of years, have you just, because it's blowing up I think this is the third board game episode of the Dork Forest in the last 4 months.
There's definitely been a resurgence. And one of the reasons is because of Kickstarter, the way that those games on Kickstarter has exploded.
Now, Andy says that Kickstarter is actually the most successful things on Kickstarter right now are board games, because almost everyone is willing to support a board game because they get a board game at the end of it. So they are the things that are kind of blowing up. I mean, I don't know enough about Kickstarter because I know that you did.
I know a fair amount. I've done 3 of them. Yes,
you did 3 of them. You did the graphic novel.
Yes.
And didn't you do earbuds?
We did earbuds, but also we kickstarted the festival there too.
Oh, the first year?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was just 3 guys in their 40s with good credit. No? No, it turns out.
That, first of all, that doesn't exist. And
not in Los Angeles.
But no, we weren't even sure if people wanted a festival. So that's when we kickstarted it.
Oh, right, because it's also, Kickstarter, of course, is a good advertising platform to find out if there is interest.
Right. So, so after doing 3 of them, and then what I found too is that I like browsing Kickstarter because it's also gives me like a mental pick-me-up sometimes, like when you see all the creativity and all the things that people are doing and everything from board games to
that's interesting.
Toys or anything.
Yeah.
It's like I supported like a fidget cube. I supported a chessboard that the pieces move on their own where you attach to the app and you could play against. It was
that's awesome.
Like really cool. Like you could have the
like the Star Wars kind of, but not a hologram, obviously.
Not a hologram, yeah, but the app actually controls the board, but the board has mechanisms where you can play against, the app, but it moves the pieces on its own.
Oh, so it's a chess game, but it's essentially 3-dimensional.
It's an actual chessboard,
so
but that attaches to the app. You could play it normally, but then it also attaches to the app where you play it against.
And you could play single player against the AI.
Yes, or you could attach with someone else with the app and play against someone on the other side of the world.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you get that yet?
No, I haven't gotten it yet. I really want it.
Yeah.
And
do you remember what it's called? Or?
Something chessboard.
Excellent. It's app and chessboard. Google that on Kickstarter.
It's somewhere, I'm sure.
But you just go down a rabbit hole of.
I look around and I just browse.
That does sound inspirational.
It is. It's really fun. And then, the thing, like some of the stuff is like the kids want. Like I showed them, do you guys want that? Like is a little fidget cube where you hold.
What is a fidget cube?
A fidget cube is something where if you can't sit still or, you're taking a test or whatever and, you want something to do with your hands, it's a little cube that each side has something different to do with your fingers. One's like a little joystick, one is buttons, one is like clicks.
Okay.
So, it's to kind of focus
fidget
you.
Cube.
Yeah.
It focuses you?
Yeah, it's supposed to focus you so you can concentrate on what else that you're doing.
Well, that's weird. It sounds like it would be exactly the opposite.
Yes.
But it's some sort of psychological study was done.
And I heard about it from like one of the other dads at school.
Sure.
It was like, okay, well, I'll check it out. And then the kids went nuts when they saw it. They're like, I have to have one. So,
I need to have one for my multitasking child who can just do one thing at a time.
So yeah, but they're cheap. If you're $10-20, it's not that big of an investment. But then I started looking at board games, and that became a much larger money and time suck.
Yeah.
Because I love the elaborate nature of like the big board, the miniatures, and like really
toy
cool
value.
gameplay. Yes,
There's
toy value. So the ones and they take forever to come in, by the way.
Right. Andy was very disappointed that he could not be here for this episode. Quite honestly, there's an unspoken rule in the Dork Forest that when it's games, video or board or tabletop, he would like to be the one to also be in on it. But
he has that extra dimension of he actually makes them too.
Right, and he had to go. He's teaching Game Design 101 at this tech school over in Burbank.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is the third year. Third semester he's doing it. He loves it. It's it's a game design class, and it's everybody who goes to who's in the game program at NYFA. It's New York Film Academy. It's just a trade school, right? And has to take it. So every semester he gets everybody, and it's all it is game design. It's basic game design. And instead of video games, he uses board games. He teaches them game mechanics, basic game design.
Right.
And last semester he taught also a level design, but that he worked through Steam and actually they made levels. But
right.
He has backed, he gave me a short list of the games that he has backed, at what, $75 a pop?
They're
probably?
Not cheap. That's where you get they have the cheap ones, like the card game ones or the mini games, but
they can still be $30, right?
Yes. But unfortunately, the ones I really like are the more elaborate toy value miniatures where it creates this giant world where I can't wait to set that up.
Right, you want to set that up.
Right.
You're an Axis and Allies guy.
Exactly. So it's so now I have to all right, well, I can't get too many of these.
Right, because you also only have 2 children.
Right. Yeah. And only one of them really loves playing games.
Right.
And like my daughter, she just turned 12. She likes games.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have the patience for an elaborate setup and taking a long time.
Right, she's playing our Pandemic Legacy game.
And that's right at her limit.
Yeah.
Anything more complicated than that, like Axis and Allies, forget it.
No.
Yeah.
And Pandemic is a little fiddly, but the good thing about it is that it's cooperative.
Yes, and it moves quickly.
And it moves quick, and there's a constant, what do you think we should do?
Right.
As a group, which children love that.
Yeah.
Because nobody's ever asking them for their advice.
It's true. And because we have the regular Pandemic at home.
Right.
But my
I love kind of more than Pandemic Legacy, but we do have to schedule another Legacy.
Definitely.
Just to get through it.
But my 8-year-old son, however, is intrigued and fascinated by a really complicated and long setup of a game.
Interesting.
So he has a lot more, which is interesting because I wouldn't consider him to have a lot of patience.
Yeah.
But for this,
for some reason,
he's really engaged in it.
It's the Erector set.
Right. Because he loves Legos. He loves the kind of the intricate, the way it kind of gets put together. I bought Zombicide, which is
Zombicide.
Is a Zombicide, yeah.
Okay.
Quote, then underneath Black Plague.
Okay.
Because there are Zombicide games where you play and you fight zombies, but this one is set in the Middle Ages, so you get to use magic and spells and everything like that.
I love the theme that they're doing these days, that everything has a theme.
Yep. And that one I didn't get on Kickstarter, but when I bought it, it was like this more of like a D&D setup where each little board, as you go through modules, like you set up the board depending on where the
there's a plot point for there's
different scenarios. There's 8 different scenarios you play in the game, and it's also cooperative. You're all fighting against the zombies.
Oh, cool!
So it's really neat, but it's also very complicated. But your characters, they level up, they get different powers, and each scenario gets more and more complicated than the last.
Are these
one.
3-hour games?
You know what? It's the beginning ones, no. And then as the scenarios progress and you get more proficient, then they get longer.
Because you have a character that goes from one mod to the next? You have does the character go from different scenario to different scenario?
No, every scenario you start at 0
again. You create a
again.
new character?
You have a choice of the heroes.
Right.
But every time you level up, you pick a different power. So each time your character would be different.
Okay.
So, we played that. My wife got bored instantly, but my daughter liked it, but my son absolutely loved it. But it's the kind of thing, too, where, you kind of need more people. It's like we need to want to schedule more games. That's one of the things I wanted to do when I came over here. Not only did I want to do the podcast, but I wanted to see your game schedule. So we could.
Right. Yeah, because very much so. Well, we're going on this Jonathan Colton cruise. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Colton, he's a They Might Be Giants kind of musician, and he has this very big fan base, and because the songs are smart and funny, but they're also catchy and fun, right? And so I'm doing stand-up and a live Dork Forest on the Joco cruise. Mm-hmm. And it is a cruise to Mexico for 7 days. And it's, and I get to bring Andy. And Andy has contacted them. He's like, may I set up a game room? Mm-hmm. And they're like, please do. Mm-hmm. And so we're leaving on March 3rd. But yeah, we definitely, because he also, there's a game your son might like that we got as a gift from Angel that we've only set up once.
Really?
And it took over 2 hours to set up. And luckily there was a because I am your wife. I'm done. It's, the last game I bought that
seems excessive, 2 hours to set up.
Right. And luckily, somebody made a mistake and the game was over in 20 minutes. It's called Descent into Hell, and it's essentially Dante's Inferno with the 7 rings of hell. Mm-hmm. I believe it is. I mean, we played it probably 7 years ago.
Right.
And we don't throw it out. We would never throw out a board game, obviously. Mm-hmm. We'd take it to a board game cafe, or we'd give it to Goodwill, or we would, because there's just too much work.
Right.
Involved to ever throw it away. But the last game I bought,
and someone else could use it.
Yeah, and someone else will like it.
Right.
The last one I bought was called I think it's called Dastardly Dirigibles, and it is it's a very simple game, and it takes approximately 15 minutes. I love a game that takes about less than a half an hour, and it is you build a dirigible with suits of steampunk. It's just the art's really fun, and it's just a quick back and forth. But I will show you when we hang up. That's how long I've been doing the Dork Forest. Remember when you used to call in?
Yes.
So I mean, I've gotten three games myself. I've got Dastardly Dirigibles, and I've got the Battle of Hogwarts, which is a cooperative game where you play the kids fighting like Malfoy or Voldemort. Yeah. And it's a deck building game. It's sort of like Magic a little bit.
Right.
And then Andy got a game, and he bought it specifically because it had pirate ships in it. He was like, it's $7. Even if the game sucks, I get a pirate ship.
It's $7. Yeah.
A merchant ship and a navy ship. And we played it, and it was really fun.
Oh, cool.
It was called Pirate Breeze, I think.
Pirate Breeze.
And you get to, and it's just, you have a handful of cards, or there's movement cards. And every turn, you get to move your pirate ship, your merchant ship, and one of the 2 navy ships to go attack the other person's, one of the other players' pirate ship. And your merchant ship is trying to pick up merch and then go drop it off at a different place and get doubloons.
Right.
Your pirate ship is trying to rob the other person's pirate ship and then bury it on an island and get doubloons. And and then you send the Navy to just sink other people's pirate ship. And then there's cards that give you more movement, and there's cards that give you extra doubloons. And it's but what it is I like a game that gives you a lot to do, but it's simple. Like,
right.
Once you play 1 or 2 rounds, you're like, oh, I get it.
Yes.
And then it goes.
You want a smooth learning curve. A steep learning curve kind of detracts from the fun of the game.
Right. I mean, if you can face it.
Right.
You probably have fun at the end of it.
Right.
But you have to, it's a different kind of gamer, I think. Those gamers people are like, no, I want it to be hard to learn. And then I want it to be fiddly as all. Not hard to learn.
I want a rule book that's the size of a novel.
Right.
Yeah, I know. No, there's games like that out there. It's like at some point, like, I'm not sure where my limit is as far as like complication.
You haven't found it yet.
Yeah, I may not have found it, but I know it's out there because I look at some of the stuff. I'm like, oh, I don't think I would. That's too much.
Right.
Like, speaking of pirate games, one I did back on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Was Rum and Bones.
Rum and Bones.
Rum and Bones Second Tide, and I'd never played the first one, but when I saw it, it looked really cool because it looked like that kind of thing where it didn't look too complicated, where it was 2 pirate ships, crews on each, and basically they just fight each other. You get the heroes, they have their powers, but then you've got all these miniatures that are the crews, and then they fight back and forth. And but then there's all these random events like sea monsters and things like that. And then the thing that's
Wait, so it's a 2-person game?
It's a 2-person game, yeah.
And you play essentially a large
one
pirate
crew,
ship?
yeah,
And the crew.
And then, you're boarding and attacking each other.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
So they're not sea battles, they're actually boarding and doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, krakens just show up and stuff?
Uh-huh.
That sounds awesome.
So I saw it and I was looking at it with my son. He was like getting excited. But then the thing about Kickstarter too is when the games do well, they have all these stretch goals.
Yeah.
And the game manufacturers know exactly what to do. Like what they do is like, well, if we hit these stretch goals, guess what? You get more monsters, you get more miniatures, you get all the things that as a gamer
you get very specific cards.
You just want. You don't want like, oh well, yeah, if I'm getting all this extra stuff for free, why wouldn't I back it? So they understand that like the more stretch goals you hit, it's like the more value people are getting for the game, so then more people back it anyway.
Right, it's automatic expansion set.
Yes, yeah. And then so my son goes, well, did we get the Kraken? I said, yes, we got the Kraken. We got the Kraken figure. But what I don't like what they do is a lot of it is like then there's all these extra buys at the end. Like when you check out, it's like, well, there's an add-on. Do you want this expansion? Do you want this? Do you want that? Well, just kind of give me everything, and don't try to upsell me every step of the way.
Right. If I give you $75 or $35,
yes, I want the thing. Yeah, that's it.
And if a million of us do that, we all should get the stretch goals.
Right.
And
right.
I don't need the guy to draw a picture of me.
Right. There's like the stretch goals, then the add-ons, then like there's always, well, you want a bigger board and things like that. I'm like, well, you know what? Just I want the game. I want the game, and I want as much for my money as possible, but I don't necessarily need all these extra things.
Yeah.
So it also too, like, it also in the back of your head, you're like, well, do I need these extra things?
Right. Because I haven't played the game yet.
I haven't played the game yet. I'm not sure. Do I need these expansions to make it more fun? But,
right.
So
is there a way that I could play the game and then do an add-on? Because that'd be awesome.
And the other game I backed that I cannot wait to get is called Outlive.
Okay.
And this is this game that really intrigued me was because it, and I haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah.
The game is set up into 2 phases. Post-apocalyptic. Everything's broken and gone.
Sure.
But then you have to compete with different tribes for resources.
Sure.
So
Guzzling. Guns and guzzling.
Yes.
How are you supposed to?
And what I love too is I was reading about it. When you start the game, everything is broken. Like literally you start with an axe, but it's broken. So you have to get resources to literally repair your tools before you can use them.
Oh, like Minecraft.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And so the first part of the game is that you go out and you get resources, and you may have to fight other clans or whatever, and or I don't know if there's mutants or whatever out there, or like other feral animals. But then the second part is you go back to your base and you rebuild, expand, and upgrade your base, and that's the second half of the turn, which I thought was really cool. So I love when you play games, the upgrades and the building aspects of it. Those to me are really, really cool.
Okay.
If you're fighting like Axis and Allies, and then you're building too.
Yeah.
It's like everything I want in a game.
Right. Yeah. So, that's cool.
So that one I'm really looking forward to. Those are the 2 I have, quote, outstanding right now.
I like it when I like it when the world feels like well drawn.
Yes.
And but it doesn't have to be too fleshed out, because I also want to use my imagination.
Right. And I want cool miniatures.
Oh, do you also want cool miniatures?
Yeah, I do want cool miniatures.
You would like cool toys?
Yes.
It's there was one that I think Andy got. I think he liked. Well, I'm gonna forget the name of it. Whatever, but there was Sons of Bitches.
It's a weird name for a game.
That is a really, and yet, actually one game I bought just randomly, I think it was at Games of Berkeley over in, I don't know where the hell I got it actually. It was called, I didn't get it at all. It's, because, I ordered it online because I couldn't find it because it it was almost pre-Kickstarter. It was
Right.
Kickstarter had just started, and this guy made this game called Traffic, and it's a drug trafficking game. And
you showed me this game, yeah,
right? And it's super like homemade looking, right? But it's a giant board, and you start out in the hood and just sell drugs in the hood, and then you can expand out and travel to South America or travel to Europe, and there's jail time, and there's different cubes, and it's got a nice sense of tension that I don't enjoy. I don't enjoy a lot of tension, but for some reason in board games I do. Like there's a cooperative game, and I like it when it's cooperative. I don't think Traffic is cooperative, but one of my favorite games, the first cooperative game.
A drug dealer game isn't cooperative? That's weird.
It is weird. It's all everyone for themselves, it turns out. The first cooperative game I played was Lord of the Rings. It's a Lord of the Rings game, and you play the hobbits, and there are 5 different. You have to go through Moria, you have to go through Mirkwood and Mordor, and there are these sundial cards that tell you that shit went down, and I genuinely felt anxiety when I had to turn over those cards. It's sort of on Pandemic when you have to roll the cities.
Right.
Yeah, it creates that sense of tension.
Like, what's it going to be?
Yeah.
And every time I come over for a game night, I either leave with a game or I end up buying a new game. I remember I got Pandemic after playing it here.
Right.
And then the other one I got that the kids also like is King of New York, which is another fun one.
That is fun. I like King of New York better than King of Tokyo. Because King of Tokyo only had, King of New York has the boroughs.
Right.
And, King of Tokyo was it was much simpler. And so when they, King of New York, there's the rule where you can't be if you're in Manhattan, you don't get to heal.
Right.
You have to, for some reason, go to Queens to heal.
Right.
And, and then they added the addition of the military.
Yes.
King of New York. King of Tokyo doesn't have the military.
Really?
Yeah, it's just destroying buildings and fighting another monster.
Well, it feels like it's like the upgraded version.
Yeah, yeah. It was just like, you know what, and usually, like, I have my knowledge of game mechanics is relatively rudimentary. Like, I know all the words because Andy's talking about them all the time.
Yes,
but
he uses them on a daily basis.
Right. So I got access to some language, but I don't necessarily have the depth of knowledge of real game designers.
You use the word meeple.
I use the word meeple. I know what feature creep is.
Yes.
It's which is because Andy's right now he's working on 3 board games, and he's got publishers for 2 of them.
Oh, that's great.
And it's
I'm going to sit back in this comfy chair if that's okay.
Sit back in that comfy chair. I'm going to scooch this guy a little bit closer to you so you can get your iced tea.
Feels good.
Feels good. And he likes a fiddly game, kind of like you do. So he kept adding these, like this one time travel game that he's been working on. He keeps adding these mechanics to it. I'm like, it wasn't broken, man. It wasn't broken. And then I just played the iteration that he's working on now that he thinks is done. And it's such a better game than it was a year ago when he's been, It
takes a long time to make these games, to design them and play test and all those things.
Right. Yeah. It can be, it's why, like video games, it used to be a pretty quick turnaround. And it is again with some of the apps. Because especially if they're based on Bejeweled.
But yes, but not console games.
But not console games. Yeah, the Final Fantasy Legend and all the God of War stuff and all that kind of stuff takes 3 years. It's like a movie.
Yeah.
So, have you ever thought about designing games?
You know what? I had a brief.
That's the next.
I had a brief stint working in 2 video game companies, just in the testing department.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me like, well, I mean, it's brutal, miserable work, but that's the entry level. Right, well, it's the grunt work of it all. And it really, I was tempted to, well, do I stay and stick it out and maybe move up? I had thought about it. And it is hard to move up, and I had thought about it, but ultimately, I wasn't sure. Like, really what I like doing the most is just writing. Like, I like telling stories. Now, what does intrigue me, though, if I could do that and team up with a game designer, and make something together where something that's story driven that I could write and create a world, but then work with someone to create the actual game mechanics. I think that would be really exciting.
Yeah, that sounds really fun. I mean, what the great thing about the board game blow up is that people who've worked in, as far as I can tell from looking at Andy's friends and all these people, is that everybody has game ideas and that are game designers, right?
Right.
And they're not allowed to make them, essentially. And when Andy and I first started going out, I was like, I got an idea for a video game. And he was very polite about it for 3 months.
Right.
Until we knew each other well enough that he was like, I have a stack of game ideas on my desk at PlayStation that I can't make.
Right.
And so the great thing about board games is that you could take those game ideas.
Oh, this was a video games.
Yeah.
Oh, in fact, he actually took one of my script ideas once and was trying to move it into a video game.
Yeah,
I remember that. And ultimately ended up at he referred me to, there was a game company in the UK that wanted to take it on.
Yeah.
And but they couldn't get funding for it.
Fair enough.
So, but that's weird that happens sometimes. Something doesn't get funding.
And some of the games, like the games he was working on at PlayStation, they were sort of like movies and scripts where they would get production, and then they're like, well, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
I remember there was one game.
Games get killed and after a lot of money is spent.
It was a versus game, and it was just going to be like a Mortal Kombat kind of versus game, but you got to be different world leaders.
Right.
And it was so great. But then I think the United States invaded Iraq. And
that happened?
I know that happened. And I think it was exactly the same time. It was probably 2003 or 4 when Sony PlayStation, remember when they tried to trademark shock and awe?
I don't remember that, but it makes sense.
They tried to trademark shock and awe, and they were going to make a video game about it. And the backlash was so huge that they canceled the political, the political versus game.
Right.
That Andy was like, "This is the best idea ever." But who wouldn't want to be, Gandhi in like a Street Fighter kind of situation versus, George W. Bush?
It would have been the most maligned game ever made.
Well, it would have been.
But it was one of those games, too, that was like also, it would have had this core audience that would have made it the best game ever made. Like it was that kind of...
Nothing like the internet to really create 5,000 people that want something.
We're dedicated to it.
That's what Kickstarter, I think, is based on. There are 5,000 people.
As our podcast.
Yes. Exactly.
So I'll tell you, there's a couple other games I've been kind of circling around, but they're just too expensive. So I'm looking at
what's kind of the cap of what, because you want to support, but if there's 10 of them and they're $150 a pop.
Well, that's just it. It's like more like I don't mind spending a lot on a game that's elaborate that I really want, but I can't. I have to do them less.
Right. Not everyone.
Right. Like one of them that I just bought was Santorini that just came in. It was a much more manageable game, and it was like little Greek gods, and you're building little domes and structures. But then once the dome goes on, the structure is done, and you can't win because the job is to get your meeple on top of the structure. So it's a 2-person kind of almost like a little Othello chess matchy kind of game. And the kids really like that, but I've been playing that. But then it's
wait, so you're building a structure, but you also have construction workers that are building that structure. But you have to get one of the meeples to the top of the structure without finishing it?
Yes. But then someone else can finish it and block you from getting to the top. So what I like about it too is there's a basic level of the game where that's all it is. Then, if you want it more complicated, like you can slowly add cards and rules and steps and all those things. So,
that's nice.
Which I like is like then you have like that kind of choice of like, well, how complicated do I want this game? Do I want it just do I want a quick basic game? Do I want to make it a little more difficult?
Right, it's replayability.
Yeah. Now that does affect balance a lot, because when you do it that way, it's definitely harder for a game designer. I could definitely see that like some cards seem like, well, that's ridiculous, then it's like an instant win, and other cards it's like, I don't know, this makes more sense.
Right.
So I'm trying to think. The one that I'm looking at now but I can't afford is Heroes of Land, Sea, and Air, and you can imagine how many pieces that has on it.
Because there's land. There's sea,
Yes.
and then what was the...
and there's air.
Air.
Yeah,
there we go.
And so that one is another big kind of risk type game where you go through and, you have different factions and different vehicles and all these different things. But, so the other thing too is I'm waiting for these other two games. There's only so many I could set up and play with the kids anyway.
Right.
So, but I do enjoy browsing too. I look in just to see what different things are being made and even not just on Kickstarter, but too in Amazon and some other places.
Board Game Geek.
Board Game Geek, I definitely go to.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say that I'm intrigued by, but I haven't experienced yet, is the marriage of a board game the marriage of a board game and apps.
Okay.
So that intrigues me, and I haven't seen it yet, but from what I'm reading, people really seem to like it. There's a game called Mansions of Madness.
Okay.
That is a Cthulhu type game where it's that kind of Lovecrafty investigator and monsters and all those things. But it has a companion app that does some of the game work for it. And the other one that I'm looking at that I might get is called XCOM, which is based on the video game.
Okay.
It's a board game, but what I love too is it doesn't come with a giant rule book. It has some basic setup that comes in, and then you download the app, and the app runs you through playing the game.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I think that also makes it more fun and more accessible, and it's a co-op game.
Okay.
So I think it's pandemic with alien invasion.
Have you played Arkham Asylum?
I've not played Arkham Asylum
because it's Mansions of Madness made me think of it. I think I've only played it once, maybe twice, and it was the madness meter is also full of tension.
Right.
And I kind of like it, but I'm also like, I can't go mad. And then, if I play with these people who love a role-playing game. So once the madness meter goes up, there's us, and we live in Los Angeles, so there's some acting.
Yes.
Some acting happens, and you get to do some act out.
There's an actual madness meter.
There's a... and people can hold forth their Lady Macbeth impression.
Yes. They've been practicing at home.
Have you heard about Oregon Trail?
I have. I haven't played it, though. I heard it's
there's
great.
There's an Oregon Trail card game, exclusive to Target, supposedly sold out.
Really?
But they're getting more, they say. And
I would think, the remanufacturing of a card game may not be that much of a
big
burden.
Of a deal.
Yeah.
No, it turns out, and especially one that's sold out.
Right.
So.
But I'm really intrigued by what's the next step? What are the board games going to look like next if you're using app integration? The one thing, the Mansions of Madness, I heard it's got a soundtrack and stuff, while you're playing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so what will it be used to create mood? And at some point, when are you playing a video game and when is it a board game? How much stuff goes there? How much stuff goes on the board? I love the board. I love the miniatures. I love seeing everything in front of me, and playing a board game. But I kind of like the idea of the apps enhancing it, especially with rules and random events and helping us play.
Okay.
But at some point we're if everything's on the app, then it's a video game.
Then it's a video game,
right?
And one of the things I know that people who like board games more than video games have said, and it's just more, not. There's no judgment there. Is that they like the fact that they're in a face-to-face situation.
Yes.
And so if everybody is looking,
people.
Yeah. So if you're looking at your phone while you're playing a board game,
right?
How interactive is that? But one of my nephews wrote his senior paper on the community of World of Warcraft. And whether it was to be considered a real community, because he had a guild and he had his team and he had people that he played against all the time. He's like, so I know these people, but I know them over headphones and the internet. So is that a real community or is it not? Is it a real human experience, to play, to play online? And his decision, because he was 17 and he loved it, was yes.
Yeah.
And
it's weird how he came to that conclusion.
Right. He had a hypothesis he needed to actually prove. And he did a pretty good job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know. The video game I'm playing right now is so casual. It's such casual gaming.
I wish I had more time to play video games. Once I had kids, I found that I had more on my shelf than I could play.
Right.
Like, it used to be like, well, I would buy a game and play it.
Yes.
Then I would go out and buy another game and play it. There was never a backlog.
Right.
So
right. And you would
now
finish
there
them.
is. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So right now I am in the middle of, like, I just started Final Fantasy 15 because that took forever to come out. So I feel like, okay, I'm ready.
You're ready.
Yeah. And the other one is I'm still playing. Every once in a while I pick up, but they take so long. Is the new Dragon Age.
Okay.
And but I got through it, and then I'm like, well, I kind of want to keep playing, so I bought like the downloadable content for $15.
Yeah.
So you get the extra adventure. So I'm playing that now. But then I'm tired at night, so sometimes I don't actually get to play.
Yeah.
And then I saw like the new Resident Evil game came out, and it looks so cool. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just buy that and, play that over the next 6 to 8 months.
Right.
Because that's the other thing too. A game. Oh yeah, I finished that in like a week. Yeah, I can't. No.
Well, there's the problem with playing a video game over 6 to 8 months, and a game like that is that you lose muscle memory.
Yes.
And so you have to relearn the motor skills to get back into it.
Right.
And you're like, I might as well play it for 8 days.
Right.
And just check out. And, which is one of the reasons why probably it had to be 20 years ago. I stopped, when Andy and I moved in together, I was like, you have a PS3.
Right.
And Prince of Persia, literally the last game I tried to play. And because, and then I just refused to turn it on.
Well, we have a PS3 and a PS4.
Oh, nice.
Because we have games that we haven't finished. The kids are still playing on PS3.
Mm-hmm.
And then the PS4 for just like the new games. But we have, with the remote, it's easier to do all the video like DVD, like Netflix and Amazon through the PS3.
Yep.
So we're just using it for that for streaming services too.
Which is what we did with the PS3 for ages.
Right.
And
it still works.
Just died.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Ours, and he had first gen. So
I'm on my second PS3. That's
Are
not
you?
unusual.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was surprised that it lasted, because he's had it, I believe, 14 years.
That's a long time.
For a piece of hardware to last?
Yes.
It's a great
For
deal.
sure.
And so we bought, and a Blu-ray DVD player.
Now,
I
why
think
didn't
it was
you go
$65.
So you didn't go PS4 to kind of
No, because
you didn't?
I knew I didn't want it because I want to read a book.
Right.
And I want to look somebody in the face. And because I know it's sort of like when I play a casino, I put off as long as I can going to the blackjack table.
Right.
Because I will not leave the blackjack table. I will lose money. And so, if I can wait until Saturday.
Right.
That does not usually happen. Like on Thursday, like it's like a Monday through Sunday, of course, right? And, by Wednesday, I'll be playing the video blackjack or video poker. And so by Friday, I'm usually sitting at a table and I try to cap it at a certain amount of money. So, so I don't, live some sort of caricature of a Las Vegas. I'm working only for the gambling money.
Yes. Spending your money in advance before your gig is done,
Exactly.
that kind of thing. The one thing we haven't touched on, I wanted to mention for playing board games and kickstarting games is this I haven't gotten into yet, but I get it, is that you can have your entire collection of minis in a game painted for you professionally.
What? That sounds like an LA job.
It's
I'll paint your minifigs.
Oh yeah, you could send them out and then have them come back painted. And some of the Kickstarters, if you want just like the heroes painted, that's an extra money, but you get them pre-painted.
Is that an add-on?
It's an add-on.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll tell you,
is it a worthwhile add-on?
They look beautiful when they're painted, but it's a bit pricey. And it's such a business
much
now.
Work.
It's such a business now that there are different levels of painted miniature. There's like basic, deluxe, like literally
premium.
how much detail do you want painted on your little plastic miniature?
Are they plastic? We're not doing them in metal, or some of them are in metal, and because I've only seen the painted metal ones.
It's mostly plastic because a lot of the games now just have plastic miniatures.
Right. And so you can spend, what's it cost to basic? Is it $1 a thing, or is it $5 a thing?
Oh no, it's more than that.
It's even more than $5.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is something like, if you're a true hobbyist, you could spend hundreds to thousands of dollars on.
Just to get all of your minifigs painted?
Right.
It's, whenever we played D&D and whatever, and, they're like, well, I gotta get this minifig painted for next time.
And also, it's such a thing too, because, it's such a particular skill. There's very specific instructions on how to ship, like pack them up and everything. So they have to go a certain way. They have to come back a certain way. And it's really, I just read about it because I was curious. I was interested in it. Because it was the kind of thing where I don't think I'm there yet that I want anything painted. I'm enjoying the miniatures, but, all right, maybe the hero ones if it's an add-on, but I find it fascinating too, because when you look online to see like an unpainted miniature and then a deluxely painted miniature, it looks completely different. It really is. It's
so that you can see the difference between
like crazy
paint
difference
job and a $50 job or some damn thing.
It's there's everything from like shadows where then they put extra things on the base, so it's fascinating.
It's like a skull painted.
Right.
Like, that guy's really good at his job.
Yeah.
So, what was the last game that you got?
The last game was Santorini. That just came in a couple weeks ago. And then I'm really excited. I'm getting updates. Rum and Bones should be next. And then Outlive. Those are the two I have out right now. I don't know when I'm getting the chess set that moves.
Oh, right. The chess set that moves.
But the thing about Kickstarter, as someone who's done them, is the best thing, the best philosophy about Kickstarter is you pay for it. Don't expect it to show up anytime soon.
Right. Just, it'll be a present that just shows up.
Exactly. That's how you got to look at Kickstarter stuff. I mean, because every once in a while you get the email like, hey, there was shipping delays. The miniatures weren't made properly in China. We got to redo them.
Do you keep track of which ones you ordered, or is there an account on Kickstarter that says these are the things you backed?
There's an account on Kickstarter. You look at it like what you do. Because every once in a while I'll forget about something. Like I ordered, I think, a coloring book. Once, and then that shit, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I ordered this a year ago.
Right.
But I think too is, I think 99% of the people understand that are using Kickstarter. It's like 1% of like, where's my movie? Or why isn't my game done? It's like, it's not a store. That's why. And I see a delay in everything from video games to, like I said, our movie. Obviously there was delays.
Right. By the way, I'm talking with Chris Mancini, at Comedy Film Nerds on Twitter. And comedyfilmnerds.com, and
Chris J. Mancini on Twitter.
And at Chris J. Mancini on Twitter as well. And there's reviews of movies. There's different movies you can actually buy and stream and download. There's hard copies. You also have a lot of stand-up comics products besides Horcrux. You've got, I think, Dana Gould,
Thrilling Adventure Hour, Crab Feast.
Yeah, so there's plenty of other products that that if you like stand-up, you should go and wander. And if you like movies, you should wander around Comedy.
There's a lot of fun stuff there.
See what Neil has written this week.
Yes, and our most prolific writer.
Exactly. So weird and. Yeah, steal this game, Andy. I was going to tell you some of the games that Andy.
Oh yeah, please do.
It looks like he has 7 games that he's waiting to come in the mail.
Wow, see that's a lot. See, right now I only have 2, and I'm like excited about those.
Well, he is. I mean, I think it's been established that he's a game designer.
Yes.
So he cares more.
Yeah, 7 I get.
There's something called Tau Ceti Planetary Crisis that he's waiting on. It's
I don't know it, but it sounds
Space
great.
Empire strategy game. That sounds like something you would enjoy.
Yeah, I did it. I am interested.
Right. His buddy Ed Baraf, who did the Siblings Trouble, I think he gave you a copy of that. That's a storytelling card game.
Another one that my son loved.
Yeah, and it's super fun. It's just it's just a great way to inspire storytelling and goofy interaction between you and your kids. Siblings Trouble is a good one. But he also did one called Heroes and Tricks, and it's a game that takes place entirely in the box. Like, it's not a diorama. It's like, I think that like you literally, there's like a lot of tiny games now. Mini games. But physically.
Or micro games is like another one.
Right there. Physically, like Heroes and Tricks takes place entirely in this tiny box. But the other one that he brought home, I think he brought it home from Gen Con, was called Myth.
Oh, we
Did I
played
show
that.
you my?
We played it.
We played it.
Yes.
And it was adorable.
Yeah, and it's great, and it's tiny, and it's fun.
And it was fun because you use cards to move your mouse to go get the silver cheese, and you have to get by the dragon. But the game mechanics are kind of simple, but the card mechanics made it more interesting,
right?
Because it's not just a roll your dice, move your mice.
It was almost like Go Fish, where you're taking cards from other people too.
That's right. Yeah. That was the fun thing that was more interesting because you were like, oh, because there's a strategy to your hand.
Right.
And then other people can affect your hand.
Yes.
Because other than that, it's just 30 paces to get, and then you just
I remember us trying to pick, like, I remember at one time I was trying to hold the most shitty cards in my hand at once because I knew you guys were going to pick them.
Right. Right. That's a hell of a strategy.
Yes.
I like that one. I didn't mind that one at all. Yeah. So, but that was the only one I thought that you would like was that Space Empire strategy game.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let me know when that one comes in.
Okay, because there's Perseverant RPG, a survival story game. That's an experimental RPG, supposedly. I don't even know what those. I mean, I know what those words mean, but I don't know what.
I don't know what they mean together.
Right, all together. I'm at it's he's been buying a lot of time travel games because he's working on that time travel game. And he's like,
Research.
I wonder what they're doing. And but have you ever seen a TV show called The Thunderbirds?
Yes.
All right, because he bought the game The Thunderbirds, and who knows? It's and then
can't say I liked it enough to buy a game.
Right, exactly, right. And he just bought a game yesterday. He just backed a game yesterday called Super Hot the Card Game. And it's a time travel deck building game. So who knows? The deck building games are interesting because I was like, well, why don't we just play Magic? But the Battle of Hogwarts is a deck building game, and Thunderstone Advance. Did you ever play that?
No.
It's a board game that's kind of like D&D in the fact that you have a deck of cards and you have 5 cards, and you choose what to do on your turn. You either go to town and buy magic spells or weapons, or you go to the dungeon and fight a monster. But you know in advance whether you're going to beat that monster because everything's laid out. And I don't know why I like it so much because it's so obvious what you should do. But I really do like it. It's a fun game.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I'll check it out. Like, there's some really cool card games too, like you're saying, that are out there that are cool. Like deck building. That term, does that mean like you're building up the deck in the game, or can it also mean like with Magic where you buy more cards too? Well,
the great thing about deck building board games is that you usually get all the cards. You don't have to buy anything else.
Right.
There are, I think one of the previous board game episodes of the Dork Forest, someone was telling me it was that guy. My mind is a sieve. He was telling me about a great game that you could buy more cards, but like the Battle of Hogwarts, all the cards are there, and there's 7 scenarios that you play through, and but you trade out cards. You don't use the same deck for scenario 1. You use a different deck, and I think that they think of it as a toy value there. I wonder, though, with a game like Pandemic, like with the legacy games.
Right.
If at the end of, like, I've never even finished, we got Risk Legacy. We didn't get to finish it.
Love Risk Legacy. I think we're about halfway through. I mean, we played a couple games with you guys on ours, but we haven't opened everything. Tried to get a game together, but, people aren't available. Then you're like, okay, well, I've got 3 people, then 2 of them canceled. So then,
and you need the same people,
yes,
supposedly.
And
though I'm ready to throw that right out the window.
Too. And I'm guilty of that as well.
Of course.
Where it's, I have this game in my calendar, now I can't make it.
Right. So the fact that we're scheduling board games,
right,
is the greatest quality
unsuccessfully.
Exactly. It's do you ever buy like I bought that dastardly dirigible thing over at Borders or Barnes and Noble, the one that lived.
It's still alive.
The one that lived. And I like that they're turning more into a board game. I mean, they've expanded. They're like, we're going to do books, but we're also going to do a lot of board games. So they have Dastardly Dirigibles and Bring Your Own Book. Those are the 2 board games that I've bought. And they're both kind of the original game is a board game, but the Bring Your Own Book is just an apples to apples card game.
Right.
That I've described a million times, which is, you put a description in the middle, like the green card in Apples to Apples or Cards Against Humanity. There's a middle card. And then, everyone picks a book. And then you have to match what is like James Bond's little known tattoo. Everyone has a different book in their hand. You flip through it. You try to find something that's funny or interesting or appropriate. And then the first person who finds it flips over the timer. So everybody else has a chance now, 1 more minute to find their quote. Everybody reads it so it's not anonymous.
Right.
And then the person who's in charge of the middle card picks. And then whoever wins that card. And just like Apples to Apples.
So it depends on your library, really.
Oh, that's the funniest part of it. I mean, I've told this story before. Hi, guys. Hi, Rangers. We played it here, which has a lot of science fiction and a lot of classics because we want to look smart. Yeah. And then, but then we did it at a barbecue and all they had was gardening and self-help books.
Oh, wow.
So it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And when anybody wins 2 of the middle cards, everybody has to pass their book to the left. So you don't keep the same book. It's a nice.
That's cool too.
Mechanic.
Yeah.
So if you've
know
memorized,
the book.
yeah, it's bullshit. So have you bought anything just from a regular store? Like Target?
Zombicide is one I got from the store.
Okay.
And that one, I want to play that with you and Andy.
Yes, please.
So we can definitely have a Zombicide night. But that's another one where it's a fair amount to set up. But I like that you can ramp up. Like the first couple of scenarios don't seem that crazy rule-wise and stuff. But it's a strategy competitive thing, like because some of the zombies, like the characters can't kill. They're too strong. Like you have to figure out ways, there's only 1 or 2 ways to get rid of the bigger like
super zombies?
Super zombie. Yeah, there's like different kinds. There's like the the regular zombie, there's the runner that's faster.
Yep.
There's the quote fatty, the big fat zombies.
Okay.
And then there's like something called like the abomination that's like the strongest one.
Oh,
and they all come after you.
Wow.
So, but like the first scenario is like, you just have to escape.
Yes.
The next one is like, now you have to like break in somewhere and get something and,
right.
Then it goes further from there. And then there's necromancers that show up and control the zombies too. But the board controls the zombies, which I love. So you don't need like a dungeon master to control them.
Yeah.
So one person is not like
fan.
playing the zombies.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it when everybody gets to play the game.
I agree.
Yeah.
I like that too, that mechanic.
Some people like to be the one.
Like, yeah. The overlord or whatever it is, because there's some games set up like that where it's everyone against like the one player.
Yeah.
But I like that co-op where you're playing against the board and they have their own mechanics where they, you can, no one has to be that player.
Right. Wow. Well, let me tell you this, Chris Mancini. We have, it's been an hour.
Really?
Yes.
It's gone so quickly.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
The board game ones do tend to go pretty fast, because I think I'm interested in them as well.
And it's a burgeoning dorkdom for me. Like, I'm not so far into it, but I'm like, I'm getting into it now. And I feel like it's it's almost like a resurgence because I was always into them as a kid, but now I'm like kind of rediscovering them.
Yep. Awesome. Well, hey everybody, go to Comedy Film Nerds and get earbuds, the podcasting documentary, by the way.
Please do.
I'm in it at least twice.
Yeah.
And
Jackie bookends it, beginning and end.
Sure. So feel free to.
And she might be holding a hobbit sword in one of the scenes.
What? And so I just made myself snort. So Chris Mancini, Graham Elwood, Comedy Film Nerds, the podcast, Comedy Film Nerds, the website, and Earbuds, the documentary. Thanks so much, Chris.
DVD and digital. You can get it any way you want.
Oh, there you go. Awesome.
It was great. Thanks, Jackie.
You're welcome. And Rangers, you know the rules out there, especially now. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat. My hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?